Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
So first up, when we're talking about great teams, we've got the attacking football team here. So we've obviously got Scott and we've also got Dan. So Dan, we're going to start up with your team. Let's go ahead.
Ooh, I think one of my favorite teams and one of the best teams ever, controversially, might be United 2007, 2008. Now, obviously, this is kind of close to home for me because when I was growing up watching Man United, this was a team I saw and I kind of made me fall in love with football. But there's something about seeing prime Ronaldo, Tevez, Rooney, all just connecting on the counter. I think this was the year where we bet Roma 7-0 on aggregate in the Champions League. Oh,
Michael Carrick.
nasty stuff. Nasty stuff. I remember watching that and just thinking, this is the team I want to support. But the fact that we managed to do that and win the Champions League, with obviously some amazing players, but some unlikely winners. Again, in a previous podcast, we're plugging the podcast here. Edwin van der Sar coming in at 35 from Fulham. And with some of the magic that Sir Alex had pulled with some of the teams and some of the players available, it's mad. And considering the caliber of teams in the Champions League at the time, you look at obviously Chelsea's a huge one, but this is a great transition here into Pep's Barca, and at that peak of his power, the fact that Sir Alex could kind of come in with some of those players available and win the Champions League kind of shows that this team really was made of some good stuff. And I think it was what's the right word? It was individually. You look at some of these players, and they may not have been the best ever, but it's a team that was maybe better than some of its parts. Maybe not the attack, but definitely in midfield and defense.
I think this season and this Man United team was epitomized by one single player. I know it had players like Carlos Tevez, Wayne Rooney, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, Nemanja Vidic. Oh, that's a tough phrase to say. How can I not say that? But yeah, and also Rio Ferdinand. But the standout player was Cristiano Ronaldo. This was his season where he went from a great player to one of the best players in the world. He won his first Ballon d'Or this season. He scored 42 goals. He was exactly what made Man United the best team in the world that season. Also, Van der Sar as well, the hero in the shootout, saving Nicholas Anelka's penalty. It was just probably one of the best seasons. And to beat teams like Chelsea, who were great at the time, they had players like Drogba, and then also beat Barcelona, who at the time were creating something special.
It's even when you look at some of the players, and I just to pull them up, you have the likes of Owen Hargreaves, Wes Brown, John O'Shea.
Wes Brown's cross for Ronaldo in the final was immaculate, perfect pinpoint. But yeah, looking at those players, it's hard to think of a team better than that. But I think Scott might have one.
Well, United fans won't like this one, but I'm going for the treble winner City. I don't think I've seen, other than United, a team dominate the Premier League like they have the past few years, and then to culminate that with winning the treble, win the Champions League, finally doing it after they've been searching for so long. And then at one point you think, oh, are Arsenal going to pip them? No. And then you think, can United do an FA Cup final? No. And then just when you think that's it, you're struggling in the final against Inter, Rodri just pops out of nowhere and just puts the ball in the net and treble secured. It's just, they're just too good.
The thing is with the City side as well, it's as good as they are, you also have to account for the 115 charges they have.
Yeah.
But sorry, I just had to throw that in there. But this City side, when you look at their honours, like as in they've won trophy after trophy, like since 2017-18, they've won it the year after, and then there was one season where Liverpool won it, but then they've won it since. Like as in they have won 1, 2, 3, 4. They've won 5 out of the last 6. That is a crazy amount of wins for Pep Guardiola's side.
The funny thing is that Centurion's team was probably actually a better footballing team, and they probably played better football, but they couldn't just get the Champions League over the line. And this team, I think it's with Haaland, they finally have a striker who can pop up in them big moments.
Pep as well said this season that he changed his tactics to have defenders who can defend, which was a slight at players like João Cancelo. But it meant that his whole team was better as a unit and they
will-
defended
Yeah.
better.
I will
Because
also
he used to say he wanted a team of midfielders as well, didn't he?
Yeah, everybody who'd get the ball, move with it. Look at John Stones now. He's basically a midfielder.
Now, I will jump in and say that for once, Pep didn't overthink his Champions League tactics. Like some of the decisions he had made in the past was, like, I don't know, like not even FM would I try some of the stuff he was trying, like leaving
Yeah.
Rodri out last time, and just some of the other stuff. Like, but I think what needs to be praised, and I think we're not going to group this as his era because his era hasn't ended. And unlike maybe some of the teams we'll talk about in the future, we can talk about as an era. But his ability to evolve the football from
Yeah,
the Centurion, from being very fast, direct wingers of Sané and Sterling and Aguero, to then completely changing that. And as you see, he kind of had like 4 creators and then Haaland. And arguably De Bruyne playing as a second striker. And I say
Yeah.
that because when you watch even the Champions League final, De Bruyne was playing between the midfield line and Haaland.
thought he was on the bench because he was injured.
Was he on the bench, or am I completely off?
No, he started. He got injured like after like 30 minutes. Yeah.
But like it's his ability to completely evolve the team over time. It's something that's kind of underrated in a manager because I think a lot of managers have one way of playing, commit to that, and then a squad build up and squad burnout. It kind of becomes a bit of an issue, and he's dealt with it a lot better than I thought he would have. I thought he would have been gone after 3-4 seasons, won what he wanted, and then leave City in dust. But to be fair, he around.
He has essentially completed it, mate.
Yeah.
He's completed it. If I was playing Football Manager and I had won as much as he had, and then it culminated in winning the treble, I'd start a new game. As in, it's too easy now. It's like playing FIFA on amateur mode. But speaking about making things look a bit too easy, I'm gonna talk about one team that sort of has a bit of pep in it as well. It's Spain as a national team from 2008 to 2012. Spain pretty much destroyed international football, and tiki-taka became one of the most boring things I had ever watched. I remember watching football from 2008 and 2012, international wise, and just almost falling asleep all the time. Like, as in, you looked at it, they had players like Fabregas, Silva, Torres, Xavi, Busquets. They didn't lose the ball. And the thing is, against the sort of antithesis of all this was the game against the Netherlands, where they played against the anti-tiki-taka in the Netherlands, who just destroyed them. They kicked them non-stop, and it was seen as a triumph for the beautiful game. But Spain, they won the Euros in 2008, they won the World Cup in 2010, then the Euros again in 2012. It was such a dominant international team that I don't think we'll ever see it again.
I disagree with the last 4 major tournaments. I think even though they've only won one of them, France have got to 3 of the last 4 major finals. And looking at the age of their squad, I don't really see that stopping anytime soon. Especially with the likes of Mbappe and stuff like that.
I will say France hasn't had the dominance on. Like, obviously, you can look at positionally where they've gotten tournaments, but I think the eye test is a completely different story. And this is a direct dig at Deschamps, the French manager. please just leave France. The amount of talent available on the France squad, and you're playing some of the most boring football I've ever seen in my life. You have Mbappe, you have Coman, you have Griezmann, you had Pogba, you have Tuchemi, you have Camavinga, and you're playing like Martin O'Neill on their Ireland. Like, come on, a bit. Like, I get it. You've won a World Cup. I appreciate that, but do it with a bit of style, you know.
I think that I agree with you completely, Dan. Like, if you look at how France have gotten to these finals, they haven't dominated teams. All you have to look at is the Euro 2012 final, where Spain played with no striker. They played a 4-6-0 and they beat Italy 4-0 in the final.
Was it with Fabregas as a striker?
Exactly. Nice. They played 6 midfielders and Cesc as a false 9. It's probably been the most dominant I've ever seen a team. They didn't have a striker. They had Torres.
But it highlights though that both, and this is a great maybe segue, that we were lucky that the rise of Spain culminated and with the rise of Barcelona and Pep, because both which came first, the chicken and the egg? Was it all the Spanish talent coming through La Masia, or was it Pep utilizing it to its greatest? Because there's always been great Spanish talent in La Masia. It's not always continued onto the pitch.
Yeah, Spain always underachieved, and I agree with you. Pep's Barca was the reason for why they were so good. If you look at the Spain team, that Spain team was majority players from Barcelona. Like Ramos and Casillas were probably the two only Madrid players in that starting 11. But Dan, I'm going to let you continue talking about Barcelona here and how dominant of a force they were.
The bane of my life growing up. The bane of my life. I will say one last comment. I think the reason for Spain's rise and Barca's dominance in the Spanish team meant that you didn't have that infighting between Real Madrid players and Barcelona players. They were such a cohesive unit because they were majority Barcelona. But in years previous, when it is a bit more of a split, that coherence doesn't really exist. Not only because they're not playing for the same team on a club level, but they're playing against their enemies.
They left the Clásico outside of it, and they didn't care about the fighting during those games. They were a team.
Yeah, but Barcelona, man. Pep as well. Like, it's funny. Like when Pep comes onto the scene, you don't ever see a manager like this, because they never gave him the chance at this high level. But the fact that Pep went from Barca B to Barca A and essentially allowed so much of the La Masia talent he had saw come through, and then even small. Like I know obviously Frank Rijkaard gave Messi his debut, and Messi was good, but Pep just brought him to a whole nother level. And maybe this is a discussion around talent and production, where Messi could have always been a good player, but to be the greatest ever, the world's best, would not have happened without Pep. He could have been a great player, could have got 30 goals, 40 goals a season, but that fella was cracking numbers that are freakish, and it's completely changed my perception. Because even now, like if a player hits 20 goals a season, you're like, it's good. It's no Messi, but it's
no
good.
73 goals in a season. He's all right.
But even Messi aside, you look at how they played, the players they played with, the fact that Pedro, I don't know, that he was kind of an underrated utility player that was just nasty in that team.
Barcelona, like Pedro was so good, but then you also have to realize that that Pep team also had players like Henry, Eto'o, like as in that was the start of that little generation. Like if you're looking at Barcelona, you have to look at them as a team for a spell from like 08-09 to 2012-2013. That team was so good. It had players like Puyol, Piqué, who are probably two of the best defenders ever, who don't get the credit they deserve. But then they also have midfielders like Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta, icons, Yaya Touré, players that were immense. Who went on? Yaya Touré looked like a nothing player in that Barcelona side. He comes to the Premier League at Man City. He's, hot take, probably the best all-round midfielder I've ever seen in the Premier League.
Don't disrespect Victor Wanyama like that.
But yeah,
no, the amount of talent and the ability to manage all that talent, and it's something that I think at the highest level, and maybe that Zinedine Zidane doesn't get enough credit for, is
he's lucky.
Not just the tactics, but the ability to manage egos,
like Ancelotti.
Teams. Oh yeah, like if you're stacked with talent, especially like he had, not just on the starting 11, but throughout the bench, the ability to manage it, keep players going, give them enough game time to be satisfied, is a very underrated skill at the top of football.
Like the thing is with Pep as well, something that has to be said while you're talking about egos and managing them. He had no issue with getting rid of Ibrahimovic after a season, putting him to the side, making Messi be the main man up top, making Zlatan be part of the team as a unit. The same goes for Henry. Henry came as the best player in the Premier League and then was part of the system. Yeah. So speaking about systems, I think Scott has a system that he'd like to talk to.
So I don't think, if it wasn't for the City team that I mentioned, I think we genuinely would be talking about Klopp's Liverpool in this conversation. So I'm going to just discuss them. So like,
We
I
need some
think it's-
comedy here.
Oh wow. Okay, thanks. I think looking at the history books in a few years, people will forget because they'll just look at trophies. But I think it's genuinely disappointing as a fan that we got 98 points, 97 or 99 points, 97 points, 92 points, and only one league title came from that. And then 3 Champions Leagues, only 1 Champions League won out of those finals. And if it wasn't for that Pep team, we probably would be sitting here with 2 extra Premier League titles in that period.
You did it right, like, as well. As much as it hurts me to say,
Yeah,
you built a team fairly, properly, and to compete against what City have done in terms of building the team that City have done and get the points you have. I think under any other, if you don't have City there, then
yeah,
you're going to be easily one of the best teams ever. And the fact that you won a title during that spell just speaks volumes of how good your team is. The thing is, as Arsenal fans are going to disagree here, in a few years, nobody will remember those second places.
yeah.
But in any other era of Premier League football,
I slightly disagree. I think people will remember like 2 greats pushing each other to see the best football we've ever seen in the Premier League. Like, I think it would be very different, and I don't think you would see City in the Centurion and even pushing as hard as they did without someone like Klopp forcing him to be as good as he is. And I'm going to rattle every other fans and say that's something that Alex didn't really have for a long time. Obviously, I think Mourinho obviously changed that when he came around, but there was never
we
no
could
offense.
rotate. Our key players could play 28 games.
Yeah.
Like we were sorry. Like if you look at the amount of leagues we're winning, okay, we lost a league every other year, every 2 or 3 years, but we were racking up leagues most of the time, and then the other one we'd lose and come second or come third, and it was a bit of a rebuild. And to be honest, without the right investment, we were picking up players left, right, and center that. Again, I can't remember. Like, I don't know why after we sold Ronaldo, we ended up buying Valencia. I love Valencia, but
And I think a big difference there as well, in that era and the Klopp era and Pep Guardiola era, you pretty much had to be perfect to win the Premier League.
exactly.
Like in 18-19, we only lost 1 league game, which was against Man City, and we still didn't win the title.
I'm not sure if it was that game or the reverse fixture, but I remember I was watching that, and the football was literally nuts. It was some of the best football you've seen, like 2 greats fighting each other, and I think maybe
2 completely different systems as well. Like, it's so different in terms of football.
So I think people might remember the Klopp and Guardiola battle, and you guys come in second. But I will say, because I'm a United fan and I can't completely put respect to you guys, but of course you have to win the league and win the title without fans around, and there will be that slight asterisk around you guys can do it in an empty stadium where football matters.
I was already won before that.
But when the pressure is on and the atmosphere is there, can you do it? And that's something that can't always be said about other teams, you know.
Speaking about a team though that did it under pressure, which we may have taken a while to get there, but I think a lot of Man United fans will say that the best team ever is Man United's treble team. I think obviously you look at City's treble this season, it's got 115 charges. I'm still going to say it, but United didn't have 115 charges. That team was managed by Sir Alex Ferguson, like world-class players, just about hitting their peak, like Beckham, Giggs, Scholes, and then Roy Keane as well. They just had world-class players. Peter Schmeichel as well. You could list every player in that team, and it was world-class. Even today, if you were to compare teams, like if you were to look at this Man City team, there's not a lot of players in that team that I would put in that United team in 98, 99.
That is a hot take.
I don't think there is though. Like, if you look at it like a 4-4-2, like Haaland, obviously, Kevin De Bruyne, yeah, but the thing is, you'd have to start Keane.
Kyle Walker over Gary Neville. That a hot take?
Not a hope. Gary Neville's the best right back in Premier League history.
See, I think with those conversations, it's kind of like you're putting players from different eras into different eras.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of hard to judge players off that.
But like, as in, I just look at that United team. I don't see many players in Man City's team who I'd start over the Man United '99 treble winning team.